one problem is with the girls, at least? Poor self-esteem. They need to have someone think they're cool, they're connected, they're not a prude. And as she said here, the big pressure on college campuses for girls doesn't come from guys. Guys don't even work at it anymore. It comes from other girls, like she was saying, you know. And so you have a person who is chronologically an adult, emotionally may not be quite there. We talk about men all the time who are 24 and 25 with the emotional maturity of a 14 or 15-year-old. Today that is so common. I don't know what the stat would be for girls. Girls tend to be a little more mature, but I guarantee you it's not equal. They're not 20 chronologically and 20 probably in their emotional maturity, because our culture works against that. Okay, so as I was thinking about what could be of help to you all, there's two things I think that can be of help. These are the two most common mistakes parents make as they're dealing with their kids, trying to prepare them at the age your kids are to be able to, as adults, make life work, right? That's what we're all hoping, right? That we can raise our kids so that they can make life work in their walk with God as adults, and not have to live out a life because culture is pressuring them to be something who they're not. But the pressure from culture is so great, they bend that way and become that. So I'll give you the two bottom lines and then we'll talk about it. Most parents are focused on behavior, the behavior of their kids, especially as they go to college. And behavior is not your biggest concern. It's having pens that work. No, sorry. All behavior comes from beliefs. You do not have a behavior that doesn't come from a belief. That's why the Bible talks about Satan being the father of lies. That's his number one plan. He speaks to that child's heart and they end up believing something that's only half true or not true. And that belief will emanate into attitudes and behaviors. As parents, we tend to so focus on behavior or bad attitudes. That's not where it is. If I'm dealing with kids your age, I'm big time concerned about their beliefs. What are the beliefs they have in their hearts that drive their behaviors? Because if the belief stays and you shut down a particular behavior, it will show up somewhere else. Now here's the thing about beliefs. The beliefs that are the most powerful don't come out of books with sentences and paragraphs. They come out of life experiences. And so your child has an emotional experience in life, and they don't realize that is changing what they believe. And they collect a group of beliefs that have come from their emotional experiences in life, and those beliefs are not true, or half true, which is more powerful actually. And that belief is going to drive their behavior. So what I'm concerned with is how do we get parents to get to the level, or what are the beliefs a child holds that have come out of their life experiences? That has power. But to do that, you have to have a relationship with your child. Because at this stage and beyond, You only have the influence your child gives you. Now, unfortunately, life experience, all our kids at some times were 2. At 2, actually, we told them what they do, and they did it, or they had some consequence, but we never really changed out of that motif of a focus that we have power in their behavior. So what I have, and what I see regularly, is parents who don't have power, who are pretending they have power as they try to change the beliefs of their child. That goes nowhere. So what you have to do, you have to back off. You have to say to yourself, I can't pretend that I have the power to change much of their behavior. I don't. Especially when I launch them to college, I don't. So I have got to build a relationship with them where I get to the place where I can understand their beliefs, the ones that have come through life experiences. And in understanding their beliefs, then I have a shot at collaborating with them, not lecturing them, to see if they might not want to test the belief to see if it's really true. By the way, many times as I'm working with people, once they see the belief clearly, because it came from kind of a life experience, they've never seen it clearly. They look at it and say, really? That doesn't make sense to me. In the light of day, it doesn't. But it's absolutely influencing them in the darkness of an unexamined belief that Satan has allowed them to embrace. Now, that doesn't mean you care nothing about behavior. But behavior is not your big area where you're going to make the kind of growth you'd love to see happen in your kids. It's not. Here's the truth. Some of those core beliefs, it's going to take years to get out. My question is, do we have parents who are even enlightening their kids of how this whole thing works? If they come to a place where they realize something's not right, will they come back to the parent? Or do they see the parent as someone who is not safe, who is more critical, who just wants me to adapt their life? And I hear all the time from adult children 2 things. My parents are hypocrites, and my parents don't even know me. Don't even know me. And that's actually pretty accurate. So, that whole arena means you have to develop the skill set of listening to understand, not to respond. We have very little time with our kids where we listen to understand them. As soon as they start to tell us their ideas or get a little open with us, we become critical of the idea. We become concerned that they would hold this. We want to evaluate it right there. And the child sees that you're just trying to change me. What a child desperately wants is someone who is passionate to know them. Again, that doesn't mean you never have conversations where you talk about the downside of some of the things they may be doing. It just means most parents have no time where they listen to understand, where they're actually listening to a child so that they might get a sense of where that child is, what are the beliefs that are framing their life, what are the things that are most important to them in life, what is their strategy for getting to the place they want to be. And when you listen to understand, you ask a lot of questions, but they're not challenging questions. They're questions that help the child talk even more about what they think. And that's the kind of thing where maybe 2 days later you come back and you say, you know, I like the, I mean, I can see the idea of, you know, stealing the car and taking it to college so you have a car at college. I'm not sure there isn't a downside to stealing a car, though. So maybe we want to review that piece of it. You can, a couple of days later, come and talk about it. But let me tell you, if you mix in one conversation, I'm trying to understand you, and I'm trying to decide what you should or shouldn't be doing, understanding gets run over by decision making. And it happens every time. And so most of our kids do not have experiences with their parents where they have conversations that the parent is listening to understand. See, I'm listening to people, and part of my processing is thinking, that's not a good thought. It's going to probably take a year under the best circumstances for that thought to, for the child to understand that's not a fruitful thought. But I'm not there thinking, wow, you stop talking, you need to listen to how bad of an idea that is. I mean, that's what happens. So, that's a big deal. Any questions about that as an approach? And that's why the last year, I forget if we started with the second half of the junior year, or we let our kids pretty much do what they wanted to. So we had some limits on it. But if you want to go watch the movie, go watch the movie. Up until then, we had all kinds of standards of what movies you can watch, can't watch. I would even show up at the movie theater to make sure they'd actually gone into the right movie. Not to talk to them, just to wave as they go by. So it's not that, as you know, I was very concerned as a parent, what my child's being exposed to. But I get to a point where I realize they're all going away to college. They're going to have total freedom. They better be making some of those mistakes now. And even though they may not even correct them now, they need to see me engage with them in some of those choices they're making, not as the critic, just as the good listener. So I develop a lot of neutral language. Wow. I've never heard that said. I don't know whether that works or not. It's that sense of connecting with them, because that's the problem with a parent. The child says something outrageous. The parent doesn't want to say, great idea, but they also don't want to just say, idiot. And so neutral language is your salvation. That's why around staff, anytime someone says, wow, they look at me, because I've tried to teach folks to do that. Any questions, though, about that whole process? Beliefs, attitudes, behavior. We focus on behavior. We really need to be focusing on beliefs.
Can you give just an example? Can you just talk through an example? Say, your kid comes, how do you open your conversation? How are you talking about, they say something, how do you respond? Then how do you get them to keep talking? And then what do you say when you come back to them about something that's freaked you out inside?
Yeah. Girls are different than boys. So, with a guy, you can't sit down knee to knee, look him in the eye. So, you have to go to Waffle House. Because then you can kind of push your food around the plate, you don't have to look at each other all the time. Or you have to be driving in a car, something like that. And my rule of thumb is, I need to have 2 listening conversations for every telling conversation I have. By the way, my kids, my youngest, just turned 30. Her husband just graduated with his PhD from St. Andrews in Scotland. And is teaching next year in Wales at the University of Cardiff. That's a great example because they came to me and wanted to get married. They had met in high school over at FCS. And our rule was you had to be out of college before you can get married. And the guy has got to be out of college. Chrissy's my youngest girl. And so they came to me. He was a junior, she was a senior. And I was thinking, there's no way I'm going to let this happen. But I had a conversation with the young man. And I was so convinced at the end of my conversation that he was going to follow my advice. He saw the wisdom of it. And so I said, but, I'm going to leave that decision to you and Chrissy. Well, they got married the next year. They have a great marriage, incredibly good marriage. And